we want it now. And if it makes money now, it's a good idea. But it isn't necessarily it's a good idea. If the things we're doing are going to mess up the future, it wasn't a good idea. Don't deal on the moment. Take the long-term look at things.
This is a land that was for thousands of years populated by buffalo and nomadic Indian tribes hunting those buffaloes, and the buffalo grass that the bison fed on. It was described by an early white settler as wholly uninhabitable by human beings and sort of quickly moved on. We took an area that should not have been plowed up and plowed it up, and plowed up more when there were bad times, and when the bad times got even worse, not just economically, but with drought, the land began to blow, and Franklin Roosevelt could rub his finger on his desk at the Oval Office in Washington, D.C., and have Oklahoma on his fingertips. The next day, ships out at sea, 300 miles out at sea in the Atlantic, were covered with a patina of dust from the southern plains as a result of this combination of human folly and just the ability for folks who'd never owned land to settle some of the last land to be settled and cultivated in the United States.
It happened in a time when there was a world war that artificially drove up wheat prices. It happened at a time when new tractors were coming on that made it possible for a man to break a lot of sod that they could never have even attempted in the 19th century. So this was the last place that people felt that they could go mark out a 160-acre homestead, and then Congress enlarged the Homestead Act to encourage more people to do it. So, you know, if you're growing up on a farm in Missouri and you hear that there's a place out, you know, farther to the west, and instead of, you know, renting a 160-acre farm, you can go out and homestead and get 320 acres, and the rain is falling and the wheat crops are growing and you're making a lot of good money, who could resist that?
They'd see all this lush green grass out here. Let's plow it up and plant it to wheat. Yeah. It'll grow just like the grass is growing. But then the droughts came, nothing would go back because it didn't have any moisture, and it started to blow.
This is a horrifically terrible collision between human nature, filled with heroism and greed and all of the things that human nature has, and Mother Nature, that often pushes back with tremendous force. The people who spoke about it often described it as evil. They felt that they were at the mercy of forces, forgetting that they had helped create the conditions that spawned these horrible blizzards. They felt there was some other supernatural force. There was always a sense of something bigger than them.
Some people left on account of that, thinking God wanted them to leave. There was just lots of talk that God was tormenting us because He plowed up that good sod.
There was a fear in the 1930s, a very real fear, that on the southern plains, a new Sahara Desert was being formed by what we had done as a species, and that would continue to creep eastward and affect the rest of the United States.
The Dust Bowl can most certainly happen again. It's a cautionary tale not just about the southern plains, where we remedied part of the problem of the inadequate rainfall by going down and beginning to put a big straw, thousands, millions of straws, into the Ogallala Aquifer, which is melted glacial waters from the last ice age. And that extraordinary cistern of pure water is being depleted. And so when that runs out, the plains, northern, central, and southern, are in big, big trouble. And you could have a Dust Bowl of extraordinary calamities happening, and hopefully people will be wise in the few decades that we have left to try to figure out the solution to that problem. So yeah, the Dust Bowl could very much happen again, and I think that we tend Always, each generation forgets the lessons of before, and part of what history's responsibility is to remind people that human nature remains the same, and that we do tend to make the same mistakes over and over again, and that if you are going to engage in active history, it might help you have, in fact, a future.